I'll be honest, I knew very little about the trans community, and it opened my eyes to the inside turmoil.
I think it depends. Everything changes. Like now, everyone knows so much about the gender dysphoria, and there's so much help out there. There's so much advice. Some is good, some is bad, but there's help there, and people are more acceptant of it. Though there is at this moment, it's crazy sort of backlash and attack from the right-wing press and right-wing people and certain feminist groups that are very anti-trans women. But overall, there's a lot more help, and a lot more advice and guidelines. When I was very young, there was none of that. And to be honest, I knew I was different, but I didn't know what I was different about, and I didn't know why I was different. I knew I was never gay because I never was attracted to boys, or if I'm honest, I wasn't attracted to girls either. And I was brought up in a very macho family, very working class, Irish dad, very sport-minded, and with two brothers. And it was very competitive. Our father liked us to really take part in lots of sports and watch sport. We were never allowed to help my mum in the house, which was crazy. My father would go, "That's a woman's job. My boys don't do things like that." And today, my father, up until he got to his 60s, maybe even a little bit, he'd never made a cup of tea. Never boiled an egg. Then all of a sudden, he started being able to get up and do his own breakfast, and I'm like, "Oh, the world's changing." My mum and my dad broke up. My dad went through both my parents went through a bad stage of depression because they couldn't handle the breakup, and then my dad came sort of back into my life. And he'd met a woman, and I think this other woman helped my dad. My mum again was very old, traditional mum from an Irish family. It was her job to look after the family, to make sure the dinner was on the table. And I think the new woman that my dad met, she was slightly different.
Yeah.
My dad was a little bit more. She was more, well, let's go out, let's do this, let's eat out. My dad started eating out more. But I think for the first time, he started flying as well. Life, and it is great that you live through all these different changes in your lifetime. My age now, I would have thought when I was young, my age, you were old, you was on your way out. But now I still think very young.
I know, I'm literally 48 now, and I just think, God, where have the years gone? And I remember when I was younger, you'd look at, it's different now though. Well, I think we just think it's different to when we were younger, because when we were younger, looking at people our age, you'd think they were like really, really old.
If I use my real age, you're ancient. But I know my age from transitioning, so I'm only 6.
Yeah, that's true. You just mentioned that you came from quite a traditional family, like your dad was traditional and your mum was traditional. Yet when you decided to live within your truth and tell your family about it, you were really surprised about the way that she responded. She responded absolutely incredibly and accepted everything. And I just kind of wonder, have you ever thought if you'd maybe told your father, because there was so many people when you kind of, told them about your transition and what had been going on over the years, that you thought may have responded a certain way, but they didn't. They responded very positively. Have you ever thought that maybe your dad might have been one of those people? Has that thought ever crossed your mind?
Still does today. I mean, I know my father passed away in 2009. And if I'm honest, or 2010, I can't remember. No, 2010, it was 10 years today, this year. I often lay in bed at night and, I think, and I actually speak to my dad. I know that might sound crazy. And I ask him, and I just say, Dad, I hope you understand what I went through. I hope you're as proud as me as you was as proud of Frank. And I mean, I never get a response, so I never know what his answer is. But I don't know. I've my mother says he would never have understood. My brother, who's just started talking to me after 10 years because he couldn't accept when I first transitioned, he has said my dad wouldn't understand. My other brother also says my dad wouldn't understand. And my dad's ex-partner, before she passed away, she said my father would never have accepted me or understood it, because she never did either. She could never accept why I transitioned. Not that I saw much. Once my father passed away, I'll be honest, I never saw much of her, because my mother was alive, and to me she was my father's companion and partner. And I had a lot of respect for her because of the way she looked after my dad through his illness and everything else. But when my dad passed away, for me, there was no reason for me other than, if I did see her, to be polite and well-mannered to her, because her links with my family or with me, personally, I felt were over, because my mum was still alive. And
you felt that loyalty to your mum.
I just felt disrespect my mum. You know, my children went and saw her because they called her Nanny too, or whatever. And I had no problems with that. But you know, I did sort of have problems with her trying to sort of, because she was my dad's wife. I use the word muscle in and try and be that my children's grandparents, because she never had no children. She was 4, so she never had no children. But to me, my mum was alive, so I could never ever accept that. And I used to have to tell her, look, you're not my children's grandmother. You're a step relation to them. It's very much like today. People say my children disrespect me because they call me daddy when we're out in public. And I go, no, they don't disrespect me. I am their dad, biologically dad, and they have a mother. So how can I disrespect the mother of my children, which I don't? You know, I'm very friendly with my 2 ex-wives, which is very nice. And you know, we talk, we've been out for meals all together, we see each other. You know, I'm much closer to Tracy than I am to Emma's mum, because obviously that was very long time ago. But only last week I went out to dinner with Emma and her mum. You know, and I just think that's nice. And I think, you know, they must wonder, how did we never know about this when we was married to this person? You know, and I don't know if they did know, or if they had any sort of inkling. If they did, they will never say they did. But I think there was little signs, but not enough signs to make people worry, because sometimes, I remember once my daughter went to me, why are you sitting so early like? And I didn't realise I was doing that. And I said, oh, I was just daydreaming. As soon as anyone, like, I was very much into making sure that I was seen as very macho. And I think that was a lot of the problems. One of the reasons a lot of the comments I made, which were quite outrageous in certain times and offences, I hold my hands up to that, you know. But it was all like you build a defence in front of you, you build a brick wall around you. And that was the way I done it, by being this arrogant little horrible man. I used to think I was a very nice man, but people told me I wasn't.